Hello, welcome to our live stream. We are having a bit of a camera issue this morning, but it's so good to be here with you.
And it wouldn't really be a live stream at reInvent from Vegas if we didn't run into issues like this. So sorry for the late start, but we couldn't be more excited to present all the amazing stuff that's been happening over here.
There, let's get back into there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Wow, how have you been?
It's been such an incredible 48 hours over here. We got in over the weekend and trying to get set up. And yesterday was the start, and what a day it's been. We've had some amazing announcements, some amazing conversations. If you were on the expo floor, you would just be shocked as to the number of people over here. I think it always feels like the memories of COVID are all gone. We had maybe 20, 30,000 people on the expo floor. So yeah, it's just been an absolutely amazing experience to be here in person. And like I've said before, it's all about meeting all the people, connecting. That's been really, really awesome. So yeah, we've got a very exciting live stream lined up today with a lot of announcements to talk about. So we might keep it a little shorter, but we're going to talk about all these amazing announcements very quickly to recap. And yeah, we're going to be doing one every day, right?
Absolutely, one every day, 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Wednesday, well, this one, Wednesday, Thursday, and then a 5:30 p.m. wrap-up. I feel like the AWS announcements feed is doing to my brain what the lights are doing to my eyes.
Absolutely. I think, in the last 48 hours, they've dropped something like 35 or 40 different announcements just in the regular blogs feed, and it's been absolutely insane. With all the other stuff going on, keeping up with all these announcements has been a bit of a challenge. So we're going to kind of do it as quickly and often as possible and try and get you all that information as up to date as possible.
Absolutely. It is literally fresh off the press. So let's go talk about one of the really exciting announcements that came from Peter DeSantis' keynote. This is this is all late breaking news. So here it goes. Okay, this is a very exciting one. This is the Graviton 3E, and this is a new edition of the Graviton. We've got some looks like unofficial shots from the keynote. The keynote is still being edited and should be up on the reInvent site for about 24 hours, they said.
Correct.
But here is some of the photographs of the Graviton 3E announcement.
Yeah, so for those of you who are new to the Graviton world, of course, the vast majority of the Graviton instances are on the Graviton 2 setup. And then last year at reInvent, they announced the Graviton 3, and you have the C7G instance, which basically is the Graviton 3 instance for very computationally intensive workloads. And last night, Peter DeSantis announced the Graviton 3E, which is an extension, I guess, of some sort of the Graviton 3 platform, but it is very specifically driven towards network-oriented workloads. So things like if you were doing NAT gateways or network routers or things like that, I guess these kind of instances would be really cool. And the new instance type is called the C7GN.
Well, there's the C7GN, which is the new there's a C7GN, which is the network one. And then there's it's kind of a family. It's the C7GN, and it's also the HPC 7G for high performance Graviton 3E. So
correct.
And larger instances of 64 vCPUs, 128 gigs of memory.
Correct. So this is pretty exciting, though. I'd be very interested in learning about use cases where people are deploying these instances. I guess there are a lot of network appliances that folks deploy on AWS, and they're using, we're going to find it very useful to use these kind of instances to run those. So very, very exciting news around this. We're gonna wait for more details around this new family of instances. We will try and benchmark a few of these to see how they perform versus the other ones and where they really stand to edge out the other instances in the earlier set of families.
Well, and we've got it's amazing just the expansion of the Graviton family now. In terms of Gravitons in production, there's Graviton
Correct.
2s, going to be Graviton 3s, and then 3Es. So this is exciting to see. Well,
Correct.
I think paired with this announcement, there's another late breaking announcement. So let's cue the next one up. I think this is almost equally exciting. Here you go.
Yeah.
Continuing with this on the Peter DeSantis keynote, more Amazon. Do you hear that noise in the background? That's our announcements feed. Sorry about that. There's more and more coming down the pipe. We're going to try and catch up to yesterday. And we'll keep going. This is the Nitro V5 custom silicon built by Annapurna Labs. So the new Graviton instances will be paired with the Nitro V5.
Correct. And the Nitro V5, for those of you who haven't read the Nitro white paper that Jeff Barr kind of put out on his tweets last week, was it?
Yeah, that was
just
last week.
It is a fascinating read. I think we covered it during the last week's live stream as well, where we spoke about how there shouldn't really be any more excuses for moving to the public cloud and all the security associated with it. This is just absolutely awesome. And I can't, like, in my head, there was just Nitro. I didn't realize that they've already been 5 revisions of Nitro. So we are at Nitro 5. It feels like just the other day we were still on the Zen framework where they were still using Zen to run all of the hypervisors.
It's funny talking to a lot of the early AWS users here and remembering when it was Zen and Boto 1.
Correct.
And lots of Perl. Oh, wow. And actually, there is a good post. I'll put the new instance types. This is for the previous one. I'll put this link in the comments as well. But going back to the Nitro, I'll put this here. Nitro V5, let's get some of the numbers. 40% better performance per watt. 60% higher PPS. PPS is what is PPS? Okay, the AWS made this team possible by doubling the number of transistors in the custom Nitro chips. So there we go. Better performance per watt, lower latency. That's really exciting.
Correct. And I need to figure out what PPS is. This is new to me. So we will go find that out and keep you guys posted. Like we said, we are still catching up on all the news that's kind of coming down the pipe. So yeah, this is really exciting news. And Nitro 5, better performance on all of those new instances. By the way, for a lot of you who are still on the old instance types, I'm talking about generation 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5. This is the best time to upgrade those instances, even within the same family. Upgrade them to the latest instance types or the latest generations within the family. So if you're on an M2, M3, M4, get to the M6G, which is the Graviton 2 based instance. I mean, this is the best time to get to that. At the very least, at least try to get to the M6, which is the x86 based instance. You also have the options of the AMD ones, which is the M6As. So try and get to the latest generation at least. They are way cheaper. They have way better performance. I mean, from the price performance standpoint, between the second generation and the 6th generation, you're already looking at maybe 40, 50, 60% price performance benefits. So, just get more efficient, upgrade out of those old versions of your instances. And yeah, there's tons to gain. Lots of room.
Awesome. We have one more to cover that's getting a lot of attention, also from Peter DeSantis' keynote. Let's switch gears to Lambda snapstart. Okay, so it was announced both as a Jeff Barr blog post, but also was discussed highly during Peter DeSantis' keynote. This is accelerate your Lambda functions with Lambda snapstart.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose of Lambda snapstart? This is for Lambda functions that have large runtimes that are slow to initialize. It says in the blog post, it can take sometimes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, which...
Correct. And this is what most of us know as the cold start problem. So getting these runtimes loaded in memory and warmed up to be able to service all of the requests that are coming in can at times take a pretty long time, in the scheme of things. And therefore, this snapstart solution appears to be addressing that particular problem.
Yeah, it looks really. It divides the Lambda into the init, invoke, and shutdown phase, and then basically gives you certain conditions where it seems like it's mostly for Java,
Correct,
which uses this.
And Java has the longest boot time for the runtime for it to get started, and therefore I think this is particularly tailored towards the Java workloads. By the way, this particular blog post has an amazing. I was going through it a little while ago. It has very, very detailed examples of exactly how this works. This blog post is actually really good, and it makes me feel like Jeff's been listening to our live stream and looking at our ratings mechanism.
But
this
got
is one of the best.
screenshots. It's got use cases. It's got code.
It's got all the specific things that you want in a blog post. So this one actually gets a 5 cloud from me.
There we go, 5 clouds.
Because this is exactly what you want, right? For practitioners who are trying to use this, trying to figure out where this fits in. Having all of this code, these things to know, all of this stuff is just absolutely awesome.
And I threw a simplifies on there as well. This is
correct.
This is going to make your life easier
correct.
in most cases. One thing I thought was really interesting was this uniqueness. Because they're using caching, they have to basically make sure that the random number generator, they cache, I guess, the seed from that.
Correct.
Or it says, here we go. If you use a random number generator, it should not be based on the seed that is obtained during the init phase.
Correct.
And they've actually updated OpenSSL and verified java.secure.secure randoms. That's really neat. They've done all that work for you, but then also make you aware this is an issue.
Correct. You should start thinking about this init component of it almost like the Java static code. So anything that you declare as static is kind of global in a certain sense. And this almost feels like operating in the same model. So all of this stuff is kind of readily made available for you to leverage and start using right away. So the common complaint of cold starts should go away for the most part. That's been the biggest deterrent to using Lambda.
Yeah, it looks very exciting. There's lots of examples here. And if you were using, especially if you're using Java, this is exciting. I'm sure there's going to be more and more expanded support for different use cases of this as this matures. But they have to hit the low-hanging fruit first, which is Java.
Correct.
All right. Should we switch gears to the I think one that looked really interesting was these failover for multi-region.
Oh, yeah, that one's pretty interesting.
All right,
let's move on to that one.
Okay, here. This is another Jeff Barr blog post. He has been busy on the lead up to reInvent. I could personally witness this. It's a pretty incredible process. But here's the result. Failover controls for Amazon S3 multi-region access points. So multi-region access points, that's saying you could access an S3 bucket from multiple regions. So the S3 buckets are locked to regions in a different way than almost everything else.
Correct. So you have S3 global buckets and you have region-based buckets as well. And yeah, the structure, like you said, is fundamentally different from everything else. And these new failover controls are actually pretty interesting. So why don't we just read through this a little bit?
Okay, let's see. These let you shift your S3 data access request traffic.
Correct. So basically, when you basically create these access points that you can then tie to particular regions or multi-region and have that do all the failover for you. So it's kind of almost like a load balancer for all of your S3 storage.
This is interesting. So you have these buckets that in his example, he's got bucket and then region, bucket, region, bucket, region. And this is showing, if you scroll down, that's actually really neat. This little diagram that it makes for you, this failover overview that it will make for you of if S3 in a region goes down, then how it will make sure that you still get your bucket, and that way you still have low latency access.
Correct.
So, you wouldn't want it to fail over to something on the opposite side of the world. You want to pick, I guess, the most geographically closest one, assuming there's no, data locality rules that you're trying to follow.
And I also assume that in all of this, the access point that you create takes care of giving you a single URL or reference for your bucket instead of you having to go to your code, change the properties, and then redeploy it to access the new region. So this kind of should make it all seamless for your applications.
And this is pretty neat. Look, you get the storage class that's preserved over all the buckets. So if you have an S3 intelligent tiering turned on, all of your sub buckets or replica buckets are also intelligent tiered. That seems pretty neat.
Agree.
Wow, this is another one full of
examples. I mean, if this is a snapshot of things to come from AWS, I couldn't be more excited. This is exactly what we look for in every single blog post. All of these illustrations, all of these examples that make it really, really clear about how customers should be using these services and these definitions. So I think this is...
give it a 5?
Absolutely. I mean, this is so much better than a lot of the blog posts that we were reviewing even just a couple of weeks ago.
Just a couple of sentences. Here it is. All right. And it simplifies.
It absolutely simplifies.
Nice work.
There's just one interesting aspect. I have, S3 going down is so fundamentally, it conflicts in my head because of the way S3 is designed.
But they have literally never lost an object. Is that?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Like they've never lost an object. And to think about S3 going down, yes, it is a possibility. It is not, it's not out of the realm of being possible. But it's just fascinating that they're thinking about failovers for even a service like S3. I remember at last reInvent, I had the privilege of sitting down with Jeff for quite a while, and he was telling me about the fact that AWS is really thinking. I mean, for most of us, when we think about availability, we're like 4 nines, 5 nines, 6 nines feel like plenty because we are still struggling to kind of get to those levels of availability. But when it comes to AWS, they have to get to near zero for a simple reason that when you're doing 1 billion transactions a minute or a second, then at this planet scale, even 10 nines means you're going to lose millions of objects or millions of transactions.
A once in a trillion event happens a couple times a day.
Correct. And that's a lot. Like in their world, unless you're at zero, you're still losing millions of billions and trillions of messages or objects or whatever. And that's a big deal.
Well, once in a trillion is like dropping a piece of paper, having it land on its edge and stay there, which that's what they have to deal with.
But yeah, I mean, at their scale and their operating model, that's what that is the level of failover and availability that they have to think of. So I don't envy the engineers at AWS. You guys are doing an absolutely amazing job, but it's fascinating to think about how you guys think about this stuff. So yeah, kudos. And again, Jeff, thanks a ton for these blog posts. These are absolutely amazing and exactly what the customers are asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. This is full of examples, full of screenshots. This is great. Let's switch gears. I think one that's really interesting, service that I really like using is Transcribe. And there's a neat announcement of Transcribe. Let's jump into that.
Okay, we are...
I closed the tab. Sorry about that. This is coming out. Give me 1 second here. Actually, let me put this off the screen for a moment.
Again, if it is not a live stream and we aren't struggling to put everything together, it wouldn't be reInvent. So yeah, but this particular announcement is actually really cool. This is all about real-time analytics during live calls. And this is really, really cool. We've been doing some work with this where we've been, putting together a bunch of data where we've been using not just Transcribe, but we've also been using a lot of the sentiment analysis and all these other services to understand what happens during the live call, including recognition and all these stuff. So this one is really interesting because when you have a Zoom call or you have a Chime call or any of these things, if you ran them through Transcribe, it will be interesting to figure out sentiment around what each person is, what each person's sentiment is on the call. So you can take action. One of the things that I've always felt about virtual meetings and having done this for like 15 years now, is that it's easy to kind of, switch off as you're listening to somebody in a meeting. You don't really understand engagement enough. And the fact that for whoever's speaking or whoever's the active speaker in the call, if they can get this analysis to say, oh, the audience is getting bored, or they're not engaging, or they're not doing things like that, then it actually makes a very big difference to how you can, figure out a way to, course correct and engage with the rest of the audience.
And if you haven't looked at, I'll put a link to a demo of the JSON file that you can get out of Transcribe, where it's not just the sentiment of the call, but it's the sentiment of the sentences in the call.
Correct.
So you can actually see the emotional trajectory. And I've got this fun simulated phone call I did with a friend of mine where I pretend to be a service agent. He calls, he's initially angry. Then I offer him a rebate on a future thing. And then you can see him reacting to that positively. And so you can see if you were mining your call center data and say, okay, this is a worthwhile rebate to offer customers.
Right.
The transaction of the call has improved. You can mine all of this data very richly. And so being able to do this in real time and being able to, I guess, intercept a bad situation, maybe a particular agent, a particular customer aren't getting along, you can transfer them to agents that specialize in boosting.
Correct.
It's really exciting, all the things you can do.
It's really fascinating what you can do with this now.
Well, and you can see all the different building blocks that they've built coming together at these very high level services, right? Underneath this is the voice recognition, the sentiment analysis, the real-time streaming, and then bringing that all together into one thing that you can use in real time. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't be more excited about all of this stuff. This is really, really fascinating announcement. And like I've said before, it is all about the higher order services. If you're not leveraging the higher order services that AWS is coming up with, you're kind of missing the point, because these bring in some amazing technologies that would not be possible to build yourself or would be insanely expensive. And you can start leveraging them at cents to get started, and they can really transform the way you run your business, you run your products, all of that stuff. So leverage the higher order services. It's not about the bare bone instances or just Kubernetes. The higher order services is where all the value is.
Absolutely. We've got a question. I'll pop this up on the board.
Yeah.
Do we know if the builder sessions we live streamed? Fairly certain they are, but the person to reach out to that is Darko Mazaros. He was on our show at episode 25, 26.
26, I think.
26. Yeah. Reach out to him. He does the build on live. I stopped by his booth yesterday. It's going to be pretty exciting. So reach out to him to verify. I'm fairly sure they are. They've got, if not, it'd be a waste of a whole lot of cameras.
No, I know that I ran into him last evening as well. If you find a person in an amazing, colorful t-shirt, or actually a shirt, then it's likely to be Darko. So go find him or search for the Build on Live. I think they call it Build on Live, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called the Build on Live stream with AWS. Look out for that. And they're going to have some really interesting stuff. If you happen to be on the floor in Vegas, they have the entire builder section on the floor. It's kind of right at the end center area. So go look out for the folks who are building some really neat stuff over there.
Absolutely. They put a lot of work into it. So go check it out if you're in person or on the live stream. We've got another question, or not a question, a comment actually. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. That's why we do this. We're really excited to be condensing this information as much as we can, trying to filter a fire hose into a pressure washer, I suppose. But we're doing the best we can, and we're glad it's providing value. So thank you. We really appreciate you watching and your comments. So thank you.
Correct. And please, if you have any questions, please post over here. We'd be more than happy to answer them for you. So we move on to the next one.
Absolutely. Let's look at verified permissions. Here it comes.
Great. Okay, this one is really interesting.
Bringing this up on the screen. Here it is, verified permissions.
Great. So what this basically does is when you're building applications which use Cognito as a permissions mechanism, you can create very, very granular permission schemes for your users to decide who gets access to what kind of data. I'd be interested. I was just starting to look at this. Like we said, there's a fire hose of this information coming in. I was hoping to see a few examples at the bottom about exactly how this is managed. And can you just scroll down a little bit more?
There's not much.
There's not much in here. Yeah. So we're going to have to wait and see how this actually works. This is in preview, so we are hopefully going to get access fairly soon to this, maybe in the next 2 or 3 days. And as we get access, we will play around with it, and we will share information with you guys about how this works, how it's meant to work, and what real problems it solves.
Yeah, I mean, I think the exciting thing is, because I can imagine if before this, you'd have to do a lot of writing yourself to manage these fine-grained permissions, because they have to be managed somewhere. And I can imagine the security issues that it can open up, because there's a lot of, it's like mashing 2 Rubik's cubes together, these permissions. It's really complicated, and doing it yourself, that you don't want to be doing that. You want to be using Amazon building blocks. And so them giving you this building block of saying, here's how a user can access a piece of data within your application. That's really exciting. So
I'm just a little curious, because they've always had RBAC over here. So that's role-based access control with Cognito. And so it's interesting because they started talking about a lot of the attribute-based, or the ABAC, attribute-based access control, a short while ago. So I wonder whether this allows you to combine a little bit of the roles and the attributes and create these more complex access scenarios or patterns that you can define. So I'd be really interested in trying this out and playing around with it and sharing our learnings from this.
So should we hold off on giving this a rating, or?
Yeah, let's hold off. I mean, this just feels like a press announcement. It doesn't feel like a blog post that talks about how to use the new service. So yeah, I'll say let's hold off on this. Let's get some examples going.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's move on to another announcement, Glue 4.0.
That is exciting.
And all right, let's put this up on the board. And then again, this is another testament to how busy Jeff has been. This is another one that came out. Glue 4.0, new updated engines, more data formats, and more. So Glue,
there's tons of stuff packed in over here. Like, there's just so much. So Glue is basically the ETL, framework within the AWS services. It really allows you to stream all of your data, process them in big batches, and Glue has a bunch of other services kind of within it. It's not kind of
Sorry about that, guys.
We might have dropped out a bit.
We dropped out for a second. Sorry about that. I was trying to post a comment, and I think I don't know what happened there. Anyway, here is Glue. We are back. Let's put the article back on screen. Apologies. We are. That's right.
We are doing this absolutely live.
There we go. Glue 4.0. So, and I thought this was really interesting. Little preface to this article, where Glue is a collection of not just AWS internally developed things, but also what they say here, tools developed by the open source community. And since open source, not all of them are all backwards compatible. So you can't blindly update Glue versions. AWS is very good at not breaking backwards compatibility, and you will get a bazillion warnings before they actually do it. But any open source project is not necessarily adhering to that philosophy. So warning you, don't blindly update Glue versions. But that being said, you should plan to over time.
Correct.
Okay, features of Glue. What do we have?
So, of course, the Python 3.10 and Apache Spark 3.3, long time coming. Great to see that in Glue now. And then you have support for the Cloud Shuffle Services plugin, which is for Spark. That's been pretty neat. And Pandas support for data frames, which is pretty awesome.
Well, yes, Pandas is an enormous dependency. So it's when you add Pandas to a Lambda function, whoa, okay, that got a lot bigger. So that's really neat that they've got that now. That's very exciting. That adds a lot of features. The Pandas PDF is like 1,300 pages. It's an incredible piece of work.
No, but I mean, data frames are so fundamental to anyone doing any kind of data processing or analytics that the fact that Pandas support has come in, I think, is going to be a huge sigh of relief for folks who are doing any kind of data analytics. And of course, the new data formats. So you've got Apache Hudi, which actually makes it really easy for you to use S3 as a data store, but also do updates and stuff like that pretty easily. And then you've got Delta Lake, you've got Iceberg, tons and tons of stuff packed in over here. I think it's going to take us a couple of weeks to unravel all of this, play around with it, and see what's different. We'll probably try and bring in some upgrade paths to you, tell you what breaks as we try different things. So we will try and bring all of those insights to you over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
All right. Well, before we have anything, do we have a rating for this one? And then we'll go on to I mean, I think this is what do you think?
I think this is a high level one. So I'd say this is a 4. It kind of gives you a lot of details of what's in there, but there is a ton to unpack. Like this is like a software release announcement, which has a bunch of new features in it. And we will need more blog posts and stuff that talk about the detail, because there's just so much here.
Oh, and even the simplifies complexity. Well, it depends, right? Because now that you have this access to Glue 4, you can see your list of tasks growing a bit. So does it simplify? Does it complexify? I mean, it gives you more options, but it might.
I would say this is neutral, because I love the idea that Pandas is now here. You've got Python 3.10, because that's kind of been the standard for over a year for how people have been writing their code.
So I'll put a neutral announcement over us. There we go.
Yes.
There we go. It's neutral.
We'll kind of try and get around this. But okay. But yeah, really exciting stuff. We will keep you posted on how this all works and our experience with it over the next few weeks.
All right. Next one. This is a pretty exciting one. EFS Elastic Throughput.
Oh, this one is interesting.
All right, here is EFS Elastic Throughput. Let me zoom in here, and I'll put this link into the comments now, this time without closing the streaming tab. So there we go. Okay, there is the EFS Elastic Throughput.
Yep.
So let's have a look at this one.
So as I was reading through this almost felt like, you remember the T class of instances. So you have the T5, the T4G, or the T4, or just the T4. These are the burstable instances. So if you have EFS where your throughput needs are very bursty, then you could use this as, you could turn this on. And what it allows you to do is kind of build credit over a period of time, where you can use the credit that you gather to actually burst at a particular amount of time. That's my understanding of this. This almost feels like that whole model.
So to use some ancient terminology, if your site gets /dotted, you want elastic throughput, right? So normally you have one visitor a month, you make it to the front page of /dot, and all of a sudden because they have the Hacker News hug. So that's another one. So this is really neat. What I really like about this is thinking about, ideal for spiky, unpredictable workloads.
Yeah.
And then so you don't have to think actively about managing your performance or overpaying for idle resources.
Correct.
Now, in the back end of what's powering this, do you think there's a predictive component to this, or is it just is it a reactive component?
I think this is more a scenario of trying to club together EFS instances in however way they aggregate it, put a bunch of different spiky workloads, in under one management framework. And when you have a lot of those things going on, you will eventually find that the net is a smoothing of the curve. So take a bunch of sine waves, put them all together, you'll probably get a flat.
Well, I guess it reminds me of what you were saying when you aggregated, and this is a story for another day. Well, in your cloud, when you aggregated all these tiny databases into an enormous Aurora instance.
Yep. So we run about 2,000, schemas under one Aurora cluster, and that Aurora cluster is so static in its usage and performance. It's pretty amazing. But each individual database schema is incredibly spiky in its usage, in its resource utilization. So when you kind of club them all together, you get a pretty predictable and flat setup. And I guess that's what they've done. They've basically pulled together the management framework around these set of Elastic instances or EFS instances, and that allows you to kind of net get a pretty stable, predictable outcome.
Absolutely. This looks really, really exciting. Serverless, fully elastic file
How's
storage.
the pricing? I'd be interested in figuring out what the pricing looks like. I'm guessing it's going to be a little more.
EFS user guide. I don't see anything about pricing. That is a good question. I wonder.
We'll check this out.
All right.
We are going to dive into this. There's tons for us to look into, but this is pay-as-you-go pricing, so it's not even credits.
A new throughput, yeah.
But my guess is that this is going to be slightly more expensive than your standard EFS volumes. But if you have a spiky workload, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and for especially the smaller projects, again, where you don't know when it's going to burst.
Correct.
Like all my little personal Dynamo DBs are all pay-as-you-use because I don't need any fixed infrastructure.
Exactly.
Before we transition to the next one, Kirk, the audio for your intro bumpers is super loud. Thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it. I will address that on the next one. I was wondering about how StreamYard balances that, so thank you for that feedback. Really much appreciated. We'll make the adjustments. All right, let's go to the final one. This is, we are cross-account, CloudWatch cross-account observability. All right,
great.
Cover your ears. All right, this is CloudWatch cross-account observability. This is another one by Danilo Pascia. He has a great social media account, by the way, social media presence. He has a lot of really interesting tweet streams or Mastodon streams, so definitely follow him on your platform of choice. Okay, cross-account observability, multiple AWS accounts. So we see this all the time. The days of one keys that you share around are long since gone, and thank goodness for that. You don't want to do that. So multi-account strategy, but you still have to then bring all that telemetry back.
So here's the reality of most deployments. I mean, back in the day, you used to take an entire application, put it all in one account. That's no longer kind of feasible because you have limits. So let's say you have a completely serverless setup. You have hard limits on how many concurrent Lambda instances you can run, and you have structures around how your microservices run. So the general strategy that people are, set up is to try and use services that are hosted in their own account with their own set of checks and balances in place, including API limits, service limits, all of that stuff. So it's a great way to kind of keep each module or each microservice in control. And so when you do that, you have your application that's now deployed over a number of different accounts. When you have to gather telemetry, things like X-ray and any other aspect of observability, logging, X-ray, all of that stuff, WAF, all those numbers, all those stats, getting to understand how all of those relate across all these different accounts and services that are running within those accounts is incredibly painful. I mean, one way to do it is dump it all in S3 and then build your own observability tools around it, which is a nightmare. So your best bet now is to use this. Now that CloudWatch actually supports cross-account observability, you can dump it all in CloudWatch. You can look at all of the stuff there, no matter which account stuff is coming in from.
And centralized alarms, that's
exactly
really helpful.
That's really neat. In one account, if you can create all the alarms across all the, for the services across all the other accounts, that's pretty neat. And on an average, we use almost 5 or 6 accounts per application that we deploy. So this is actually a really big deal. This makes life so simple.
And look at this. Again, this post full of examples, screenshots, use cases. This is really, really neat. And it's interesting, all these announcements that are coming out now, there's a lot of them, but they're also more complicated. There's a lot more to each one of them. So it's not just one little feature this is a big deal.
I agree. And thanks again to the AWS team. Thanks for listening to us. This is a godsend for anyone who's trying to really understand what's happening with these announcements or how to leverage it. These examples are absolutely priceless. So
and especially this diagram, look at that. Okay, monitoring account, source account.
Correct.
So that's we will definitely dive into this, and it'll be fun to do some examples with this.
Correct. I think we'll do a few builder sessions of our own as we walk through some live examples of things that we've tried out and share those with you.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end for the day. As I said, there was a lot of exciting announcements. Well, actually, we have Wicker GA. Let's go with that last one.
Well, let's do the last one.
All right. Wicker. This is a post by Sebastian Stormach, and we talked about Wicker a while ago when it was announced as a preview.
Correct.
And now this is general availability of Wicker. So now, if you've been holding off on trying it out, I think now's the time. I'm really curious to see how it compares to other messaging services like Slack.
Chime.
Well,
Chime seems to be a de facto in the Amazon world. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how other corporates start leveraging Wicker as their internal communication tool. This is the substitute, like Steven said, for Slack or Google Chat or any of those mechanisms. You can share documents, messages, video calls, files, all of that stuff. So yeah, let us know your thoughts. Try it out. Let us know if you like it or not.
And it shows the motivation in literally the first sentence is, okay, they've got the all the regulars, they tick all the boxes in terms of businesses, regulations, all of that. So that really makes the use case. And having worked with banks and with healthcare, this is extremely important.
Correct. Okay, we have a question. I think Mark has a question over here.
Subscribe to notification enabled. When's the next episode? In about 23 hours.
So this week, while we're here in Vegas, live on the floor, we are trying to stay on top of a lot of very interesting announcements that are coming through our way. So this particular AWS Made Easy live stream is going to be every single day at 7:30 a.m. Pacific.
7:30 Pacific. Yep,
7:30 Pacific. Sorry, I'm confused about time zones. I'm in a 13 and a half hour time zone difference, so my head is all messed up with times. But we're going to be here every morning, and then on Thursday we are doing a wrap up.
Yep, 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m. Pacific.
A sigh of relief, a little bit, but also it's sad to see how this excitement will be coming to an end. But that's in a while from now.
Correct. And otherwise, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific is when we do our live stream. This is Ask Us Anything. So please feel free to post your questions. Let us know in advance about areas or topics you want us to cover. We are available on our social handles.
Mm-hmm.
They're available also on awsmadeeasy.com. So reach out to us, and we'd love to cover whatever you guys are interested in.
Yeah, any questions you have for tomorrow, any announcements you want us to go over in advance, just send them in or just drop it right into the chat, and we'll go over it.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. That is it for our show today, I guess.
Yep. What have you got going on?
Okay. Today's so in another 45 minutes or so, we have Adam Selipsky's keynote, which if you are here in Vegas on the floor, please come join us. We have an amazing suite here, and we're doing a live watch party, followed by we are going to be doing a podcast later today, which covers all of this. And I have two amazing guests. I have J.R. Stormont, who is the executive director and the creator of the FinOps Foundation. And I also have Joe, who runs all the communities exercises for the FinOps Foundation. So they're going to be my guests today, and we're going to try and unravel everything that's announced during Adam Silvsky's keynote. There's going to be a ton that's being announced. So from all the feelers that I've been getting, of course, AWS remains incredibly tight-lipped, but pretty much every team has told me they have some amazing stuff that's going to be announced around their
Tight-lipped, but bursting at the seams.
But bursting at the seams, like. So couldn't be more excited about it. My prediction is that there's going to be a ton of stuff around cost and efficiency and that stuff, because again, that's top of mind for everyone. So very excited to hear about some of those things that are going to come up. And then what do we have? There is the FinOps Foundation reception later this evening. And yeah, the expo floor is going to be teeming with buzz around all these new announcements. So yeah, if you spot us on the expo floor or want to reach out to us, just drop us a note, and we would love to meet you if you're here in Vegas.
Absolutely. Reach out on any of our social media channels. Love to meet, love to talk about anything AWS. All right, let's wrap up, and we will see you tomorrow morning, if not sooner. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.